Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for spending your Tuesday morning with me. I heard ECC tickets sold out, so it's nice to see 10 of you here today to spend your Tuesday morning. My name is Hanan Nor. I'm from Outlier Ventures. And today we'll be talking about what my friend termed as the most eclectic topic of the conference. So, I thought I'll present something a bit fluffy in the beginning before you go and hang out with the nerds with all the more technical talks. So today is going to get philosophical, yes. It's going to make me feel better about the university degree that I never use, yes. And hopefully you'll go away learning a thing or two about something different at the conference. So what are we doing today? Essentially, I have one objective. My goal is to draw parallels between the ideologies of the thinkers of the past with some of the ideologies underpinning crypto as we know it today. So my argument is crypto is actually bigger than the future of the internet, and some of the ideologies that we're experiencing today is pivotal to the changes in society. So how do we do that? So we are going to look at three areas. First, I will present a high-level theory presented by these thinkers, and then we will look at their relevance. We will use our big, wonderful brains to reimagine crypto through their eyes. And then finally, we will hypothesize what projects would be of interest to them had they been alive today. My understanding of these philosophers begin with my obsession with Hobbes. Hobbes actually is a really interesting thinker. So to set a bit of context, the foundational ideas in politics that we have today can be traced back to these three thinkers, Hobbes and Locke in the 17th century and Montesquieu, pardon my French, in the 18th century. Three white men, similar like crypto. They were instrumental in shaping the ways in which dominant societies are organized, especially the Western societies. From the framing of the US Constitution to the notion of liberty, freedom of speech, freedom of press, limited government, every freedom that we experience and exercise today were at one point a very radical and unfathomable ideas of the past. So beginning with Hobbes' notion of the state of nature in the 16th century, to Locke's writing influencing the American Revolution, and Montesquieu's philosophy being imperative in shaping the US Constitution, their writing has shaped and underpinned ideological movements in society. Now, how does this relate to crypto? Well, crypto being a primarily technological-driven industry, from cryptographic tech to blockchain technology, I would argue that crypto goes beyond the future of the internet because many of you are here today because we want to solve a certain problem or believe in certain ideologies underpinned by the movement. So decentralization, censorship resistant, identity and privacy, taking ownership of your data and accountability. We may think that these shifting ideas are very, very novel, but actually it's not all that novel. If you look at it closely, you can trace it back to, philosophers of the past. So we will begin with Thomas Hobbes. So essentially, there are three arguments that you need to know about Thomas Hobbes. Thomas Hobbes writes about the state of nature, the social contract, and the notion of self-preservation. Hobbes was the OG. He was an influential philosopher in the 17th century in which there was a civil war in England between the public and the monarch. So his observation of the state of nature in the civil war relates him to argue about his primary argument. According to Hobbes, in the state of nature, without a governing authority, people would act in ways that promote their self-interest. Even if something seemingly selfless, like volunteering to speak at the biggest crypto conference in Europe, there's always underlying motive, like getting a free ticket to said conference. So humans are inherently bad, and because humans are inherently bad, according to Hobbes, people would act in a very chaotic and violent nature, something that he argues to be nasty, brutish, and short. Therefore, secondly, he proposes the notion of the social contract. So individuals like you and I, Alice and Hanan, voluntarily give up our freedom and our rights to a sovereign authority, the Leviathan, in exchange for protection and security. he argues that by exchanging our rights to like the policeman, to the government, we can prevent the state of anarchy. In the modern term, the usage of Leviathan can apply to anything from like big corporates to government to in organizations that have power and control over you. So for example, in order for you to enjoy the freedom to tweet your thoughts on Twitter, you exchange some of your rights and ownership of your data and privacy. Finally, central to Hobbes' argument is the notion of self-preservation. So he argues that all individuals are fundamentally equal. Hanan and another guy is equally physically and mentally equal. And because we are equal, we all have the right to self-preservation. And in order to self-preserve, we can pursue our self-interest. He considered this as the most important, the most fundamental right. So, what parallels can we draw between Hobbes and crypto today? I think there's 3 elements that we can dig deeper into. Decentralization, Hobbes will absolutely hate it. He will never tolerate decentralization. In the same manner, some government entities like the SEC think of crypto, a challenge to social order. Privacy and anonymity, not a chance. He would argue that privacy that crypto advocates increase opportunities for criminal activities and lack of accountability. Censorship-resistant future, probably not. He would probably be more in favor of anything that can track your data and privacy. Because to Hobbes, crypto is nasty, crypto is brutish, and people have been shorting tokens left, right, and center. So, if Hobbes were to be reincarnated today, I think he would absolutely look like that. We could argue that the SEC's series of attacks on crypto is underpinned by a series of unfortunate attempts to retain social order. You and I have no idea on how we can retain our financial freedom, and we had a contract, therefore serve it to the government and the big banks. So if Hobbes were to be alive today, hypothetically, what projects would he invest in? So these are my arguments. I think Hobbes would invest in stablecoins, but not the USDC, USDT kind, the CBDC kind. He would definitely participate in DAO and governance only if he had 51% of the votes. And probably he would invest in like data and transaction monitoring tool, like a said wallet that can like de-anonymize your identity. Sounds familiar. But all is not lost. There's actually an escape clause in Hobbes' thinking. So he argues, because self-preservation is super important, when the Leviathan violated the social contract, the right to self-preservation supersedes the Leviathan. So, is it 5 minutes? Okay. Because until that social contract is restored, self-preservation becomes paramount. So what does self-custody look like in today's day and age? Self-preservation. For me, self-preservation look like, one could argue that self-custody is a form of self-preservation. Smart contract is a modern interpretation of social contract. Using cryptocurrency as a fuck you note to like decentralized government and big banks that support tyrannical governments. Like people rising against brutality in Russia, in Belarus, in Nigeria, do not see crypto, or like probably wouldn't agree with crypto as a mission, but see crypto as a tool to facilitate their mission. To tie all this together, I think Hobbes is right about crypto because I think it's a reflection of what we're experiencing in today's day and age. It's a little bit uncanny. However, I would argue, do not lose hope, because John Locke, much like our political system, the ideas in crypto evolve. So John Locke has 3 arguments. He argues about natural right, property rights, and limited government. He proposes the theory of natural rights, meaning from birth, you and I, Hanan and the rest of the world from birth has the right to liberty, to privacy and property. And these rights are not granted by government, but are born in the state of nature. Finally, secondly, he also argues that every human being has the right to property so long as you work for it. And you have the right to acquire this property through your labor. And the third argument would be, Hobbes argued for limited government. Governments should have clearly defined powers delegated to them by the people, and they should not infringe upon our private affairs as individuals. So I want to bring you back to this quote by one of my founders that we invested at my company. He quoted, "You have no idea what it feels like to wake up one morning and become 10% poorer, not because of your own doing, but because of the devaluation of your currency or things that you have no control about." So in some sense, cryptocurrency provide the ability for people to take ownership and control on their financial freedom, the individual liberty that Locke argued for. So had Locke been alive today, I 100% think that he would be an NFT bro. He would look at activities that enhance privacy and security. He would definitely invest in digital assets, real-world assets, and all those NFT that provide liberty and ownership back to the creators. And he would argue for balanced regulation and free from surveillance from the government. And then thirdly, we're going to talk about Montesquieu. So Locke actually provides the foundational ideas to political systems that we have in the US today, but Montesquieu's provide the foundational ideas in executing them. He argues for three things. First one, the separation of powers leading to the balance of powers, the rule of law, and the virtuous citizenship. Montesquieu advocated for the separation of powers between the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government. So according to him, different branches should act as a check and balance for the government and the other entities. So how is this relevant to crypto? I think by reducing reliance on centralized network through distributed ledger, reducing intermediaries, these technologies may offer a way to distribute power more broadly to individuals. Crypto's transparency and immutability can provide a mechanism for auditing and verifying transactions. However, the notion of check and balance can also be applicable to the notion of decentralized purism. There's this notion that we want everything to be decentralized, but it doesn't have to be. Some use cases is relevant to be decentralized, but other use cases, especially in relations to consumer adoption, consumer protection, should be centralized in some manner. So this check and balance is what Montesquieu were advocating for. And central to his second argument is the principle of the rule of law. He believed there's a need for rule of law, and it's important for a well-defined legal system. And rule of law should be clear, consistent, and known to all citizens. So I think, the Rishi Sunaks of the governments of the world have applied this thinking, but some other governments have a long way to go in applying his notion. And then finally, the virtue of virtuous citizenship. A virtuous citizen, according to Montesquieu, is someone who actively participates in the political life of the community and is committed to the common good. So he argues that if you engage in the community to voting, to participating in activities that bring the greater good to your society, then you're a virtuous citizen. And I can see this being applied a lot in cryptocurrency through DAO and other governance. So to tie all this together, before that, he would definitely be a DAO bro. To tie all this together, I hope that this talk would bring two things to you. One, I hope that it presents you with a framework when interacting with a lot of diverse people in crypto and others outside of bubble in terms of their thinking. Some of them could be the Gary Genslers of the world, some of them could be the Lockes of the world, and some of them could be the Montesquieus of the world in the way that they think. And secondly, I urge you to think about your role underpinning the movement that we have. I know this all sounds very fluffy, but if you look at the trajectory between what happened in the 17th and 18th century to what crypto is experiencing now, there are a lot of parallels, because if history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. Thank you.
No time for questions. If you go, you can come and ask directly to her.
Thank you.